Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video with me, Oofle Spoofle. So in this video, I'm going to send a 30-seat SSTO to Minmus, and of course back. But quickly, I'd just like to say that if you do end up enjoying this video, then make sure to leave a like, and also subscribe if you're new here. And also drop me a comment, tell me what you think. But with that out the way, we can take a look at what's going on the screen right here. So of course, this is the space plane that I'm using for this mission. Like I've said in the video and in the title, it has capacity for 30 Kerbals, although I'm not actually using 30 Kerbals for this mission, just because when you have a lot of Kerbals, it starts to lag out your game, and that no one likes that. But apart from that, we've got 8 Rapier engines and 2 of the nuclear engines. So you can hear right here, you have the supersonic effect, so we're well past the speed of sound at this point. We're just absolutely piercing through the atmosphere. We have very good thrust to weight ratio with this many Rapier engines. You do need quite a lot of Rapier engines for this as well, because all the crew cabins generally, it will give your spaceplane a very high dry mass, and that's definitely evident. Like, we have very low thrust rate ratio with our nuclear engines, to the point where like some of the burns were really long. But that's fine, you don't need a high thrust rate ratio for Minmus, so it wasn't really a problem with this mission. But soon enough, we should be firing the Rapiers into their close cycle mode. Should be happening any moment now. There we go. And we're also pitching up the spaceplane just so we can climb out of the atmosphere a lot quicker. But yeah, in all, it was quite a shallow ascent profile. I just wanted to pick up as much speed as possible in the lower parts of Kerbin's atmosphere to make full use of the super efficient air-breathing Rapier engines. But as you can see, my apoapsis is now out of the atmosphere, which means that I will be able to do the rest of the circularization with my nuclear engines. So if you can see the Kerbal engineer readouts at the top, I have a thrust rate ratio of 0.2 with the nuclear engines, which is it's low. It's not the best. And this would be far easier with a higher thrust rate ratio. Everything's easier with a high thrust rate ratio, of course. So this circularization was pretty long, and it ended up being quite inefficient, as I spent a lot of time not pointing directly prograde. As you saw here, I had to pitch quite far upwards just so like I wouldn't start falling back down to Kerbin. But this space plane is fairly overbuilt, and I finished the mission with quite a lot of Delta V left actually, so it didn't end up being a problem. We were all fine in the end. So yeah, we can plot our course to Minmus and start the burn. Now, I believe I started this burn a bit on the late side, and what that meant is, well, my course was very far off by the time I'd finished the burn. It also didn't help that the run kind of was in the way there, so I had to do some corrections on the way that ended up being a bit more expensive than I would have liked. But like I said, we had plenty of Delta V, so while it was slightly painful to have to do this, it was fine. So there we go, just adjusting our course for Minmus. Trying to get it roughly equatorial, because, I don't know, something about it is, it's just nice to have an equatorial orbit, even though it might not be that important, especially for Minmus. Although actually it kind of is, because you'll see in a moment, we'll be landing at the greater flats, specifically, and that's because we need all of that flat space to kind of use as a runway. You'll see in a sec here, after we've done our insertion burn right here. But I feel like I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but I might as well mention how I'm going to land this thing. Now, normally with a space plane, you just, like on a non-atmospheric body, such as Minmus or the Mun, you would just kind of land it like a normal rocket, basically, and land it vertically. That's definitely possible with this. I kind of want to show off a little and go for a horizontal landing. So you'll see me do this in just a second. There was no real reason to do this other than style points, really. While it does save me about 90 meters per second of Delta V, again, like I've said a lot of times already, we had plenty of Delta V. But anyway, what I'm doing here is just killing off my vertical speed. We don't need to worry too much about the horizontal speed, and we'll just let the wheel brakes take care of the rest. I did make sure to turn up the brake power all the way up, just because of Minmus's low gravity, brakes don't work particularly well. But anyway, here you can see I'm coming into land, and the trick is, just before you touch the ground, you want to give yourself a little boost upwards so that you have, a bit of upwards momentum. That gives you time to reorient your space plane. And yeah, I clicked retrograde on the nav ball because it has to be very precise. If you're not precisely on retrograde, then it's going to skid and probably tip over, and it will not end well. But anyway, we've come to a stop, and we can now get Valentina out to plant the flag. And look what it says on the flag. I think those are some wise words coming from Valentina, if I do say so myself. And we can also get Bill out. And yeah, like I said, there's only 2 Kerbals, even though this thing can carry 30. Again, I want to have above 10 FPS while flying this mission. Got a nice stationary camera there. By the way, just so that none of you ask, that's the camera tools mod. Now, because we landed this thing backwards, we're going to have to turn it around 180 degrees because we want to launch eastwards. So at the beginning of this takeoff burn, I fired up the Rapier engines very briefly just to give myself that little kick. Basically the reason for that is there's some pretty tall hills at the end of the Greater Flats, and we want to make sure we can clear those. And basically, if you're wondering the way how I got off the ground there, you basically just keep boosting until you reach orbital velocity. At which point, because physics, you will just start to go up naturally. And then I had to do a little upwards burn just so I clear those hills nice and easily. But there we go, we've reached orbit around Minmus, and we can start plotting our course back to Kerbal. So yeah, nothing special about this one. I went for a periapsis. I think my final periapsis was about 47 kilometers. Yeah, so of course, I only have 460 meters per second of delta V at this point. So you probably could guess that I'm not going to be able to use engine burning to get back to low Kerbal orbit. So of course, I'm going to do aero brakes to get there. I figured that's pretty standard. But I thought I should just mention that. And look at that sunrise over Minmus. How is that for some good visuals? I've got a roughly equatorial orbit here as well. A little trick you can do is if you set the Mun as your target, the Mun is on a perfectly equatorial orbit. So you can use that to judge what your inclination will be. So we've got 6 degrees here. You have to be careful with that sort of inclination because that could be enough to make you miss the runway. But well, you'll see. As you could probably guess, we will be fine in this mission. And actually, I'm banking a little bit to the right because my intention was to try to fix my inclination during the re-entry. It didn't really work, but we managed to make up for that in the final approach. Now, there were a total of 3 aero brakes, not including the final descent, but I'm only going to show the first one just because I don't want this video to become too long and there's not a whole lot to see in them. Like, it's just me flying through the atmosphere, really. So anyway, if you're wondering why I'm in the map screen here, I have the Trajectories mod, and it kind of acts as a guidance of like where your space plane is heading. I don't really know how to explain it. I might just be personally very used to the mod because I've basically always had it installed. It's more of a guidance. It's not an absolute like this is where you're going to land because it doesn't take into account. I mean, it doesn't know how you're going to pitch your craft. You know, it's not. It doesn't have psychic abilities. You know. Although I think there is a feature on the mod where you can input what you will put as your angle as attack. And it will kind of give you a slightly more detailed... I'm going to admit I haven't used that feature, so I don't fully know what it's about, but I've seen people use it. And from what I can tell, you know, it looks like something I should probably try at some point. But anyway, coming in for the final approach here, we're coming in quite fast. Like, we're still supersonic at, 2.5 kilometers. So we do have to bleed off a lot of speed here. And, well, at the point I slow down to about 100 meters per second, it's safe to touch down. And, yeah, I just have to activate, like turn up the brakes at the end there, just so we make it to the end. But that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, you know, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Drop a comment. Check out the videos on the end screen right here. But that's all from me. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.